Hi everyone, I just wanted to do a quick little update. So I am going to be on vacation with my family for the next couple of weeks. Spring break is here, hooray! This will be the last video I post for a little while, for a couple of weeks at least. But I wanted to do something really special, so I really hope you enjoy it, and I will see you when we get back from vacay. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye. Hi everyone, it's the ComicFanMan here, coming at you with another video. And in today's video for MOTU Tuesday, I wanted to do something a little bit different. It's not a figure review. I'm going to be presenting you here a short story that I wrote just shortly after Revelation came out. And I, for one, did not like the Revelation miniseries. However, I do think it presented some really good ideas. So I used those ideas in my short story. I just wanted to make the characters a little bit more faithful to the MOTU story arc and actually make it a sequel to a MOTU story. Unfortunately, I will be presenting it in robo voice. It's just too long for me to do a sit-down read. But I do hope you still enjoy it. And if you do feel that I've earned it, please give me a like and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you and have a great day. Bye-bye now.
He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, Adam and Teela Revelation. Chapter 1, An Awakening. Teela wakes up after having another dream of Prince Adam being tortured, and she could do nothing to save him. She screamed out his name, when in this dream, she saw Evil Lynn drop a death blow into Adam's heart, which is where she wakes up in a cold sweat. She has had this dream every night for the last 2 weeks. But on this day, the day of his wedding to Princess Andra of Avalon, he died in her nightmare. Adam, her best friend and confidant, her brother at arms, and prankster partner, but she can't save him. Ever since King Randor announced Adam's betrothal to Andra last year on his 20th birthday, Teela has been uneasy. Adam himself seemed to be surprised by the announcement. Princess Andra is a dark-skinned beauty that is known to be kind and generous. She would make a wonderful queen one day, Teela would tell herself. She can help keep Adam honest. But it still never brought her the sisterly joy she knows she should be having for him. She has been trying to distance herself from Adam over the last few months and even put in a request to Man-at-Arms, her father, to have Sir Laser-Lot, the newest member of the elite master of the universe, take her place in Adam's private guard when her dreams started. Teela starts her day training with her bow staff as she usually does when she suddenly hears a voice as if someone was right next to her. She looks around puzzled because there is no one there. Again a sweet-sounding female voice called her name, but still no one is there. Come out, she says with bow staff in a defensive position. Teela, it is time. A beautiful but sickly woman's face appears before her as if out of thin air. Time for what? Teela drops her defense, feeling at ease seeing the face, almost as if the look on it was that of someone who cared for her. My dear Teela, it is time for you to fulfill your true calling. I am the sorceress of Grayskull and you must come to me. But today is Adam's wedding. I am his royal guardsman, and captain of the guards. I must be there, she said while turning her head away, not really feeling what she is saying is honest. Teela, your father will bring you. Adam will need you both in the future, but he will not need you at his side for the celebration. I look forward to seeing you in person. Teela, and with that she vanished. The sorceress of Grayskull needs me? And today of all days, what's this all about? Teela thinks to herself. Chapter 2, Big Day. Everyone is in Adam's room getting him ready. He is really tired of being poked, prodded and groomed, but he knows everyone around him is super excited helping him get into his wedding clothes. Cringer also seems to not be happy with all the grooming he is getting either. Adam knows he should be excited. After all, he is about to be wedded to one of the most beautiful princesses in all of Eternia, Princess Andra. Her father King Stratos, and their people from Avian has been a long-time allies of the kingdom, ever since Adam helped him broker a peace treaty with the people of Andrinos. Stratos also happens to be one of the elite defenders of Eternia known as Masters of the Universe under the command of Man-at-Arms. But on this joyous day Adam seems more distracted than overjoyed. His father never discussed this betrothal with him, and worse than that, his sister at arms, Teela, who has been with him side by side since childhood, has been too busy to help counsel him through this. She has been too busy to sit and talk and joke with him for almost a year now, and every time they find a moment to talk she always changes the conversation away from his wedding. The door opens and Man-at-Arms walks through. Duncan, Adam and Cringer say in relief to see their friend and mentor. Then Teela walks in behind him. Teela, Adam said softly, but then he quickly realized they are in their full armor and not wedding clothes. Teela is taken aback by how handsome Adam looks. She has always seen him as such a goofball, but seeing him here in his wedding garb, made him look like a very different person. A true king in the making. My prince. Duncan breaks the awkward silence and stares between them. We apologize, but we will not be able to be at your wedding. Adam's look turned visibly upset. What? Why? He looked back at Teela as she looked away, visibly upset. Duncan grabbed Adam by the arm and moved him toward the balcony so Teela couldn't hear what he was going to say. My prince. Duncan continued, I know this is upsetting, but we must go to Grayskull. Oh, of course, Adam interrupted. Even on my big day when I need my friends and family most, Grayskull beckons, Adam said as he then looked away. It has been 5 years since he was chosen to be He-Man. It was fun at first with all the adventuring, but as of late it has felt more like a burden. He can't stand hiding who he is anymore, but the sorceress made it very clear that he can't reveal who he is to anyone who doesn't already know. He wonders if this may be why Teela has distanced herself from him in the last year. Maybe she knows he's hiding something from her and she's tired of it. Prince Adam, Duncan said very sternly, snapping him out of his thoughts. This is neither the time or place to. Adam throws up his hand to stop Duncan. Hold that thought, Duncan. Adam interrupted as he went over and grabbed Teela's hand to take her outside to the balcony so they could be alone. Teela, is everything okay? He asked as she snapped her hand back from his. That's rude, she snapped at him. Teela, Adam, things are changing. We aren't children anymore, she interrupted him. Yes, but that doesn't mean we can't still be brother and sister at arms anymore, names they gave each other as they grew up together. Why have you grown so distant to me? Did I do something? When Adam said this, Teela's look turned somber, almost sad. Adam, I am hearing things and seeing things that are not there. Visions. Nightmares. Then she looked up at him, thinking of what she has seen happen to him in her dreams, and now the sorceress of Grayskull called to me. The who? Adam knows who the sorceress is, but again has to play the ignorant role that he hates in front of his best friend. I can't explain it really. She looks away again. Just know that I am happy for you and I wish you and Princess Andra a bright future. My prince. With that she turned and left with Duncan. Adam stood in the balcony alone and dejected. My prince. Teela has never once in all our years together said my prince to me, Adam thought to himself. He has heard it countless times from countless people, but never once from Teela. Duncan had tried for years to get her to respect Adam's title, but they were so close it never felt natural for them. So to hear her say it that way hurt Adam in a way he didn't expect. Cringer came up to Adam and Adam knelt to pet him. Why does the day that should be my happiest feel like it's a funeral for a friend? Chapter 3. Ceremonies. As the sun begins to set, Duncan and Teela arrive at the drawbridge of Castle Grayskull. They could see the fireworks going off in the distance in the direction of Eternia. Again Teela knows she should feel the joy of a sister, but she doesn't. Duncan can see his daughter is not focused on what's about to happen. Teela, he said as he put his hand on her shoulder, are you ready? She turned to look at him. Ready for what? I should be at Adam's side on his big day. I should be celebrating with him and telling stories that will embarrass him. I should be offering him to his wife. She had an awkward pause when she said wife. But here I am in this creepy castle for who knows what reason. Duncan knows what's really bothering her. He has seen both Adam and Teela grow together, and trained them both himself. He has seen the changes Teela and Adam are going through over the last year and how they see each other, even if they don't know themselves, that they are in love. Duncan was sure that one day they would be wedded. He would joke with Adam from time to time, being worthy of being He-Man is not the same thing as being worthy of my daughter, he would tease him. Adam would always smirk and blush every time Duncan said this, even as He-Man. The betrothal was very much a surprise to Duncan as it was for both of them. The king and queen, who have always relied on his counsel, didn't even mention the betrothal to him. He was just as disappointed as Adam and Teela were, but he is duty-bound to not interfere. But he was heartbroken for Teela and Adam because he was sure they would be together. Teela, Duncan removed his hand from her shoulder and was going to try and console her, when the sweet female voice came from the opening of Grayskull. I know for what reason you are here, my dear Teela. They both turned to look into the opening and out came the sorceress, holding herself up with her staff, but she looked very weak. Her skin was very pale with some deep green and purple vein lines all over. Duncan was surprised to see her like that. Sorceress, what's happened? He asked as he ran to catch her before she would stumble. Is Grayskull under attack? No, dear man-at-arms, she said as she touched his face, then turned to face Teela. Teela stood there shocked to see the sorceress without her head dressing. Her hair was long and a fire red with white streaks. The same shade of red as hers. In fact, even though she is sickly and aged, Teela could see something in her that she never saw before, a resemblance. My dear Teela, I have watched you from afar, watched you become a stunning warrior under the instruction from your adoptive father, and for as much as I am allowed, you have filled me with pride. my daughter." The sorceress threw her arms around Teela, and Teela in turn wrapped her arms around her newly found mother. They both shed tears of emotion, and when sorceress kissed Teela on the forehead, a flood of memories rolled in that were not hers. She saw a very young sorceress gain the mantle after she saved her town from an evil wizard. She then saw when she saved an Eternian soldier who was left for dead. Sorceress nursed him back to health and in that time fell in love with him. But once he was healthy enough, she returned to her duties at Grayskull, but she was with child by then. She then saw when sorceress crying uncontrollably as she gave the baby to Duncan. "Mother," Teela finally said the one word that she never dreamed she would ever say in her whole life. "Teela, my sweet. The poison of King Hiss is finally taking hold and I can't fight it off much longer. I don't have much time, but what time I have I can begin to give you your full gifts. Eternia will need you, as it always needs a sorceress." Teela looked at her puzzled. "I know nothing of magic. I am a warrior, not a magic user." "Adam will also need you," sorceress added, seeming like she could read her mind. "Adam," Teela answered, "there is much for you to learn, my dear. Please come in so we can begin." Back in the palace, the celebration is beginning to wind down. The ceremony was beautiful. The king and queen were filled with such pride they looked like they would burst. To the table immediately facing them is the new power couple of Eternia and their entourage. Princess Andra looked like a goddess and Adam looked like he was ready to take the throne as a good and proper king. To either side of their tables were their guards. Ram Man, who was next to Andra, Roboto, Spectre, and where Teela would normally be by Adam's side, stood Sir Laserlot. Sir Laserlot is relatively new to the Masters, but he has earned his place. His sword skills are second to none. Trained personally by Fisto, Clamchamp and Man-at-Arms in all forms of combat, but melee was his favorite. The deed that got him promoted to master was defending a town from Beastman. Shadow Beast attacked for over an hour on his own till He-Man and the other masters arrived. It was said that he slayed 20 to 30 Shadow Beasts with just his laser sword and a horn. He cut off one of the beasts. His partner Cyclone was the master charged with defending an expansion town. The town was part of an expansion effort into the forgotten lands of the Gar. Cyclone was badly injured in the battle, but Sir Laserlot continued to defend the town till help arrived, by grabbing a gem found by the archaeological team called Tamaj. It can enhance the holder's abilities tenfold. The gem was what Beastman was trying to get to enhance his beast control powers. Sir Laserlot got to it first and it gave him an ability to call forth laser melee weapons. He is a man of honor and chivalry, and Prince Adam was happy to add him to the team, but not at the expense of losing Teela. Orko was as funny as always, leading the crowd in celebration and cheers and helping Adam laugh, but Adam looked a bit bothered from time to time. He constantly kept looking over to Sir Laserlot, who was at the spot where Teela should be, at the ceremony table. Orko noticed this almost immediately, which is why he was trying to distract Adam as much as he could until at last they came to the closing of the feast. Princess Andra looked over to Adam and reached for his hand, which surprised him when she touched him. "We are married now, you don't have to fear me," she joked. "I'm sorry Andra, this day has been very heavy for me." "Well, how about we do something to remove the weight of the ceremony, my prince?" There goes that phrase again, my prince. Sounds so very simple and he has heard it every day from one person or another, but when Teela said it, it stung. "Shall we go?" Adam said as he kissed her hand. She returned a playful smile at him. "Yes, let's go." With that, King Rander started the final toast of congratulations and excused the new prince and princess power couple to, as he put it, complete the ceremony, where everyone roared in a big cheer as Adam and Andra covered their faces in embarrassment, while being escorted out of the ballroom and into their bed chamber. Back at Grayskull, Adam is He-Man, Teela exclaimed in complete disbelief. "But he's Adam. I know he can fight, but he doesn't care for adventure. He tries to avoid it at every turn. He always flees from danger. And when he does leave, who has shown up in his place every time?" Sorceress asked. Teela can't believe she never noticed something so obvious, then looked at Duncan, realizing he isn't surprised by this revelation. "You already knew this, father?" "Yes, Teela, I apologize for not including you, but we were sworn to secrecy, till the time was right for He-Man Adam to be revealed." "But why not tell me?" "Teela, you and Adam were 16 when he was thrusted into being He-Man because of Skeletor, much earlier than any champion of Grayskull before him. Neither of you were mature enough to deal with what would happen if this secret got out. But your time is now. He-Man will soon face threats that he will no longer be able to handle alone. His secret will no longer keep him out of danger. The time for secrets is at an end. He will need the warrior goddess that you are meant to be." Sorceress stood and escorted Teela to the throne room. Before the throne was a new headdress and armor set for Teela, in the design of a snake. "This armor is for you, my dear. Designed by the greatest man-at-arms Eternia has ever had," she said while looking at Duncan, "to protect you from the poisons of the snakeman, and imbued with the magic of the sorceress crown. Take it. The age of the snake sorceress is here. Teela looked at Duncan, who was smiling from ear to ear. Fatherly pride has overtaken his normally stoic stern demeanor. She gave him a big hug. She then turned toward the armor, but hesitated and took a deep breath. I'm afraid, Teela said. We are always afraid when it's time to change. That is natural. As your warrior training has taught you, bravery is being able to move past the fear and to accept the growth needed. Sorceress replied. With that, Teela took another deep breath and reached out to grab the armor. When she touched the armor, she was struck with power. And very similar to Adam's change to He-Man, Teela began her own transformation. The armor wrapped itself around her and her skin began to grow very fine iridescent green scales, giving her a beautiful green glow. While her body was changing, her mind was being flooded with images that she has no understanding of, but she feels it's all filling her with knowledge of things she never learned about magic. She is seeing all the memories of all the sorceresses before her, and they are all teaching her. Each sorceress had a guardian of the Sword of Power, all from different races of Eternia. She bears witness to their deeds and challenges. Finally she gets the memories of the first sorceress and sees King Grayskull. He looks just like Adam's He-Man, but with much longer hair and a heavy animal pelt he wore as a cape. She realized this must mean that Adam is a direct descendant of the King of Legends. Then she began to see Adam. Images from when he first became He-Man. He was just as unprepared as she is now. For some reason that made her feel so much more confident to know her best friend went through the same doubt, but made the same commitment. Then the sorceress stepped forward and gave Teela her staff, which, when in Teela's hands, turned the head of the staff from the falcon into a snake. Teela was finally complete. Wave your right hand, my dear, and think of fire and ice. She looked at her right hand and turned it into fire, then to ice. How? The magic of Grayskull now flows through you as naturally as you breathe there. You need only to think of what you want to do and it will be done. But be careful, when outside of Grayskull, it is like using your muscles. You can do basic elemental spells, but you will get exhausted if you try anything overly complicated. You will need to exercise it daily to get stronger outside of Grayskull. As a trained warrior you will have the best defense in case you find your magic lacks at the start. But as you get stronger you will have the best of both worlds to defend Grayskull and Eternia and not be limited to just Grayskull. Sorceress then gave Teela a dual-bladed battle axe. It was huge and looked very heavy, and yet somehow this sickly frail woman was able to lift it and give it to Teela. Teela, you must get this weapon, the battle axe of Aller, to He-Man. She charged her. He-Man has proven he values life above all else over these past 5 years. He has proven that he can wield this weapon responsibly. When Teela touched the handle, she again saw the memories of the axe itself. She saw Aller, the first champion after Grayskull, being charged by the elders to reforge the two halves of the Sword of Power. King Grayskull split the sword to defeat Hordak. She saw him travel to the very extremes of Eternia's north and south poles. The battle axe was his weapon on his journey, and unlike the sword, which is only meant for defense and protection, Aller was offensive with this weapon's strikes. He used it to strike down all manner of foul beasts and wicked wizards. When the vision stopped, the blades of the battle axe of Aller then vanished, leaving just the handle. Sorceress then embraced Teela again. My dear sweet Teela, it is now your time, the time of Snake Sorceress. I have watched you from afar with joy and pride, and now I get to hold you with my final moments in this existence. I could not have asked for a better reward. Mother, do not fret, my dear. My life force will be part of your magic. Every time you use it, I'll be there with you. Always. With that said, Sorceress held Teela as tight as she could as she began to vanish, almost as if into Teela's very being. Teela could feel her warmth, love and joy. She looked over at her father, who had tears in his eyes, as she hugged him tighter than she ever has. Chapter 4. A turn. Adam and Andra laid in their bed. Adam was looking out at the stars from their balcony window as Andra was laying on his side, her arm around his body and her leg around his, both of them loosely wrapped in their bed sheets, breathing heavily, and hearts pounding as they just completed their ceremony. My prince, she said as she kissed him, snapping him out of his thoughts again. Are you happy? Andra asked as she got out of bed and put her robe on while heading to the balcony. He looked over at her, surprised by her question. Andra, of course I am happy. I am sorry about my behavior earlier. It has nothing to do with you, he continued as he also got out of bed and put on his robes to go to Andra. I was just thinking of Teela, Andra interrupted, which took Adam by surprise. As Adam walked up to her, she had another surprise waiting for him. Evil Lynn's wand struck him in the chest and filled his body with a jolt that sent him flying into the wall and knocking him out. Andra then began to change. Her caramel skin began to turn a pale yellow and her black curly hair turned snow white and straightened out and fell around her shoulders. Evil Lynn had disguised herself as Princess Andra and now had the Prince of Eternia as the prize for King Hiss. He will be pleased with this catch. Evelyn moved Adam's hair to expose his unconscious face. It's very rude to think of other women when you are with your wife, dear prince, especially when your wife is a witch, Evelyn mocked. A giant white panther arrived on the balcony. The two masters charged with Adam's protection, Spectre and Sir Laserlot, came through the bedroom door after they heard the loud crashing noise of Adam hitting the wall. The white panther was the assassin Illumina, and she changed into her warrior form, a fairly large, athletic Gar woman, with half-shaved head of white hair. She also likes to dress in male armor as she feels like a woman is beneath her. In her twisted logic, being powerful means looking and acting like a brute of a man. As Spectre sounded the alarm, Illumina ran her sword right through his gut and slashed it out, spraying his blood and entrails across Sir Laserlot armor. Sir Laserlot leaped at Illumina but did not realize Andra was not the princess. Evelyn shot him from the back, flinging him across the balcony, into the rails, knocking him out. Illumina turned back into her panther form and Evelyn put Adam on Illumina's back. They jumped off the balcony, and with the help of Evelyn's magic, disappeared into the night. Back in Grayskull, Teela felt a painful surge go through her body which made her fall to her knees. She saw and felt what happened to Adam. Duncan went to pick her up when she raised her hand to stop him. "Father, Adam has been hurt." "What? How?" Duncan asked, surprised. "He is being taken to Subternia." "Subternia? We have to go to the castle, father. Adam doesn't have his sword," Teela informed him. She always thought Adam's short sword was silly. She was always mocking it as a dagger more than a sword because of its size, as she had no idea what it truly was. The conduit for the power of Grayskull, the legendary sword of power, which in normal form looked like a dagger and didn't change size to a broadsword until the power was summoned. Back in Eternia Palace, Sir Laserlot had recovered and is now heading toward the King's Hall where the Masters were summoned. Cyclone was trying to console him, but Sir Laserlot seemed to not even be in the same hall as he was. He seemed more focused on cleaning the blood from his helmet's visor. He still had the blood of Spectre on his armor, and the more he thought of what happened, the more he blamed himself for not protecting his prince and for not saving his friend. When he saw the blood was not coming off his helmet, because it was already dry, he finally lashed out and threw it down the hall, shattering an end table that was in the hall. Cyclone said nothing. He knew Sir Laserlot needed to vent his anger and frustration before facing the king. He stood before him and hugged him. That was where Sir Laserlot's frustration finally broke. "I couldn't save them," was all he kept saying repeatedly as he hugged Cyclone. King Rander had summoned the Masters. Queen Marlena was inconsolable on her throne. Sir Laserlot, who had regained his composure, stood there next to Cyclone, still with the blood of Spectre all across his armor, visibly upset but still stoic in his stance. King Rander was not happy that Man-at-Arms and Teela were missing, but he didn't feel like he could delay the meeting any further. "Masters, thank you all for coming. Evelyn has taken my son. We do not know where or to what purpose, but we cannot wait to learn their intentions. We must scour all of Eternia until we learn where they are holding my son." "And what of my daughter?" asked King Stratos. "What has happened to my Princess Andrea?" "My brother, I am truly sorry, we do not know. Apparently Evelyn took her likeness to get to my son. But your daughter's whereabouts is unknown at this time as well. But I swear to you, help me find my son and I will return the favor and search all of Eternia to find Andrea, or avenge her," replied Stratos softly as he looked away, visibly concerned. How long has Evelyn been disguised as his daughter, and how did he not know she was missing? And the most painful question of all, was she still alive? "Does anyone know where Man-at-Arms and Teela are?" asked the king, assuming the worst because he knew they would have been the first one there. As he asked, a small flash of light filled the room and Duncan and Teela came through a portal. "I am here, my king," Man-at-Arms replied. "Duncan," replied a relieved Queen Marlena. "Who is with you?" asked King Rander. "My lord, this is the new snake sorceress of Grayskull. She knows where to find the prince." "Where? Who has my son?" King Rander asked the snake sorceress. "He is in Subternia, prisoner of King Hiss," she replied. "I thank you for any help you can give us, snake sorceress. Teela is all that we are missing," the king replied. "My king," said snake sorceress, "I am Teela." Duncan looked at her, surprised that she revealed her true self. The king, queen and the rest of the masters were all shocked at her reveal. "Masters, our prince has been taken," she continued. "I don't think secrets will serve us well at this time. It will be easier to trust me if you know me, and you know what Adam means to us all. We must get him back, for Eternia, for our future." With that, all the masters roared ready to fight. The king walked up to Teela. "Thank you, my dear," the king said, and the queen hugged her. "Save him," she told Teela. "I will, my queen, my father has a plan." Chapter 5. POW. Adam begins to stir. His head feels like it's on fire and his chest has a big bruise on it. He stands up but he notices his arms are chained to the wall but with plenty of slack for him to move around. He is still in his robes. He hears movement from down the hall coming closer to his cell. It was General Rattler accompanied by other Snakeman troops. "He is awake, my lord," Rattler says. Then from behind the troops comes Evil Lyn with King Hiss. "So he is." King Hiss looks Adam in the eyes. Adam thought King Hiss was destroyed with his snake god Certhos. He then turned his gaze to Evil Lyn. "Adam, Prince of Eternia, also known as He-Man," King Hiss informed Adam that he knew his little secret. Adam was stunned. How could he have known? Evil Lyn also seemed genuinely surprised by this revelation. "Oh Prince, don't look so surprised. There are lots of secrets found in blood, and when I bit the sorceress I learned a few things, like the fact that you are the descendant of King Grayskull, and that you are the current guardian of the Sword of Power, and the power of the Elders, powers that I will take from you." "I'm not sure what you're talking about, Hiss, but I'm not He-Man," Adam said defiantly. "Is that so?" King Hiss replied as he turned one of his arms into a snake which stuck Adam in his chest, fangs first. The pain was terrible. Adam could feel the poison shoot into him and blood draining. When King Hiss recalled his snake arm, it ripped a piece of Adam's flesh off, leaving a bleeding hole. The pain of the exposed wound and poison was so bad Adam folded over screaming. But King Hiss closed his eyes and rolled his head back. He could see Adam clearly turning to He-Man in his head. "Your blood says something different, Prince." Adam could not respond as he was still screaming in pain. Evil Lyn, for a split second, seemed almost concerned. Not that she cared for Adam's life, but the fact that he was He-Man was concerning to her. She had her own plans for He-Man. This was not something she had expected at all, and it cut into her plans, but she quickly regained her composure before anyone noticed. "I will be back to get more memories from you. Rest well, He-Man," mocked King Hiss. They all turned and began to walk away. Evil Lyn was the last to do so. As Adam looked up at her, she then turned and left as well. Adam again looked down and began to scream as the pain and poison began to rack his body once again. Teela again felt Adam's pain. King Hiss has been doing something to Adam almost hourly now. She feels he is being killed very slowly, but he is still alive, which means there is still hope. It took almost a week of searching the Subternia tunnels, but the Masters have arrived about a mile from the entrance to the Snakeman lair. Teela followed her connection to Adam, but as her mother warned, her powers are not very strong outside Grayskull, but there was no way she wasn't going to look for Adam. "Father, this is where we split up," Teela said. "I will lead the frontal assault, but do you think you can really get in using your powers so soon?" Duncan said, concerned about her new twist to his plan. "Father, it's not like we can dig into the rock face of the tunnels with a shovel," she said, teasing. Then turning serious again, "Adam is being killed slowly. He's almost out of time. Your frontal attack will take too long and might panic them into killing him immediately. I will have to try and make this work." "But you think you can handle more than just yourself?" Duncan asked. "I believe she can get us in with Orko's help," replied King Rander, who came armed and armored along with Sir Laserlot, Orko and Cringer, who had Adam's sword strapped to his side. "My king, I really wish you would reconsider going in," Duncan said. "My brother Duncan, I would not be your king if not for your help, but Adam is my son Duncan. I cannot just sit back and wait for word. Sir Laserlot is coming with us, and with the new sorceress we will be fine." "Thank you for your confidence in me, my king," Teela replied. "We must hurry. Father, as soon as you arrive, make the snakes shake so we can free Prince Adam. They will feel our full force," Man-at-Arms vowed. Chapter 6, To Battle. In the Snake Lair dungeon. "Prince, why continue to resist? Where is the Orb of the Elders? You give me memories of everything else but the location of the orb. The pain will stop once I have the orb." "The Orb of the Elders is a myth," panted a very strained Adam. "He now has 6 open wounds and many fang bite marks." Unbeknownst to Adam, Evil Lyn is using her magic to nullify the poison, but she is not dulling his pain, to let King Hiss think it's still affecting Adam. "Well then, He-Man, let's see what memories you have for me this hour then." With that, King Hiss struck Adam again and ripped out another piece of flesh, making him scream out loud. Yes, I see, she is a powerful young lady, your Teela. Perhaps you will have more to share if you see me take bites out of her," King Hiss mocked. "I will kill you first. You don't have the Sword of Power now, boy. I'll return soon with your sister at arms." As he said that, a major blast shook the lair. King Hiss looked at Rattler, who then scrambled his men to see what has happened. King Hiss snapped his head around to look at Adam, who had a bloody smile. "It's not possible. How could they have found us? Give me the location of the orb." "Go to hell," Adam replied. "You first," and he struck Adam again, but this time his snake arm stayed on him. Outside, the Masters began their siege on the snake lair. The snakemen began to come forth and it became a full-on battle. Back in the dungeon, King Hiss tightened his grip on Adam. He finally saw it. The location of the orb. In the heart of Castle Grayskull, King Hiss said softly, but not so soft that Evil Lyn did not hear him. He has what he needs. He-Man can now die, but just as he was going to inject Adam with a lethal dose of his poison, his arm was cut off. He turned to see a small portal with King Rander, Orko, Sir Laser-Lot, the new sorceress and even Cringer at his side. Blood dripping off the blade of King Rander from the arm he just removed. "Protect your king," commanded King Hiss. Rattler, Viper, Fanger, Retilax and Illumina the assassin jumped at the heroes. Evil Lyn has the location of the Orb of Elders, and with Adam's friends now here, she has no reason to stay. "Until we meet again, dear husband, accept this as my wedding gift." She waved her wand, which unlocked his shackles and stopped his loss of blood. He was still too weak to get up, but he did see what Evil Lyn did to help him. King Hiss was furious and struck at Evil Lyn, but she teleported out of his way and out of Subternia. Outside Man-at-Arms is directing each wave of the attack. Every time the Snakemen try to retaliate, one of the Masters counters with their powers. The battlefield is covered in Snakemen and Eternian soldiers. The battle is brutal and no one is gaining ground. King Stratos and his warriors were flying across the battlefield, smashing every Snakeman who they came across in the name of his daughter. Duncan has Ram Man smash the cave top, breaking the huge stalactites, and had Cyclone catch them in his wind and fling them at the Snakemen. The barrier to the lair was destroyed by the stalactites. The Masters can now enter the lair if they get past the waves of Snakemen pouring out. Chapter 7. Secrets to Tell. On the dark half of Eternia there is a mountain that spirals straight up to the sky out of a live lava flow. The remains of the snake god Cercos wrap around this mountain from the base to the top, and from its mouth flows a waterfall of lava. This is Snake Mountain, citadel of power for Skeletor and his lords of evil. In his throne room, Skeletor is monitoring what is happening at the snake lair with one of Triclops' Doomseeker drones. Evil Lyn had some very interesting things to report to Skeletor during her time with the Snakemen. She confirmed his theory that Grayskull indeed housed the power of elders, but in the form of an orb. But of the secrets, none was more interesting than his enemy. He-Man was actually his nephew, Prince Adam, son of his half-brother, the usurper Rander. She sent him this message telepathically, but for some reason she has not physically returned to the mountain yet. His plan cannot wait for her return any longer, so he will begin his plan without her. He is scanning to see if He-Man somehow escaped the dungeon, but he cannot find him anywhere on the battlefield. Triclops. Skeletor stood up and yelled out. Into the room came Triclops. "Yes, Skeletor. Any sign of Evil Lyn?" "Not yet, my lord." "Did you find a target?" "Yes, a small town not too far from Grayskull." "Good. It is time," Skeletor said as he began his maniacal laugh. Back inside the dungeon, Cringer was trying to wake Adam up. Orko has opened his cell with his magic, which gave Cringer the chance to go in with Adam's sword of power, but Adam is just too weak to move. Viper came into the cell and Cringer turned to him. Normally Cringer is too cowardly to stand and fight, but Adam needs him now more than ever. He will stand his ground. Just outside the cell, Orko and Teela are taking on King Hiss, Orko using his Trollan magic, which seems for some reason to be fine now, and Teela striking at Hiss physically. Rattler finds his hands full with King Rander. It has been many years since Rander's last battle, but he still trains and he has always been an excellent fighter. "It has been a few centuries since I last tasted the blood of a king," Rattler informed Rander. Rattler had knocked King Rander to the ground with a strike that knocked him off balance, and as Rattler went for the killing blow he didn't realize he left himself open with no space, and Rander plunged a dagger in his gut and slashed out, ripping his innards. Then King Rander grabbed his sword and removed General Rattler's head from his body with a big cleaving swing. Sir Laser-Lot was just outside the cells. He led the last three villains outside so he had room to move. He dispatched Fanger and Retilax in quick succession so he could now focus on his real target, Illumina, the assassin who killed his friend. "His blood was sweet, wasn't it?" she asked him mockingly. They countered each other's moves blow for blow. They were both so skilled that their battle seemed almost more like a dance than a fight. He would get in a strike and she would return the favor with one of her own. She finally got a blow into Sir Laser-Lot's leg, which dropped him on a knee. She kicked his sword away, and as she walked up to deliver a killing blow, Sir Laser-Lot materialized his laser mace and smashed her on the left side of her face. Her jaw shattered and her teeth on that side went flying across the cells from the blow. Sir Laser-Lot removed his helmet, his eyes flashing a bright red energy from the gem against his dark skin. He wanted her to see his face and look him in the eyes as he took her life. She tried to change into her giant panther form to run away, but he leaped over her and plunged his sword through her back and into the floor. Illumina writhed in pain until she finally succumbed to the blow. "Help me," came a weak whisper from one of the cells. When Sir Laser-Lot looked over, he saw Princess Andrea, very fragile and weak, as if she had been starved for weeks. A small town on the edge of the Forever Forest. Life goes on as it always does. People working, trading, laughing and children playing. The forest is deep and dense. They had no knowledge that if they just wandered a few miles into the forest they would find the legendary castle Grey Skull. The magical barrier around the castle would have the wander in a circle back to the village if they got too close in that direction. Today seemed a day like any other, but overhead a shadow began to cover the town. When they looked up they saw winged beasts flying toward the town. Each beast had a cylinder-shaped object in their claws and one had Beastman riding the beast. He waved his arm at the beasts and they released the cylinders on the town. The people ran in horror as the cylinders burst open when they hit the ground and a black techno-virus goo began to infect those that didn't run. Their bodies mutated and twisted as techno-virus took them. The town was lost. Everyone, man, woman and child, were turned. Skeletor was very pleased as he led his new army toward Grayskull. In Adam's cell Viper was going to strike, but as if Cringer was able to summon a portion of his battle cat courage, he leaped on Viper. Viper plunged his sword into Cringer's side but Cringer had Viper by the throat and bit down as hard as he could, ripping Viper's neck to shreds. Cringer laid next to Adam with Viper's blade still in his side and bleeding out. But he wanted to warm Adam's cold body. Back at Grayskull, Skeletor's army of techno-infected arrived at the drawbridge. Neither the castle's defense machines nor the sorceress were there to greet him. How odd, he thought. He materialized an energy bridge and his army went forth to tear down the castle door. A field of energy came up to protect Grayskull but could only stop the fleshy portion of the infected. The magic had no effect on the techno-virus as this was the same techno-virus that killed Hero back in the first age of Preternia. Triclops has been searching for this techno-virus ever since he learned of the legends. He thinks it will pave his road to power, maybe even help him overtake Skeletor, but he has been very happy with the results so far. A few more modifications and soon Skeletor will have to bow to him one day. The infected army turned their techno parts into blades and saws and began to rip open Grayskull's entrance. Adam could hear the battle in the dungeon as if it was in the distance. When Cringer laid next to him, Adam could feel his warmth. He then began to open his eyes and saw his friend laying next to him, breathing heavy with blood in his mouth. Cringer, my fearless friend. Adam looks up to see Orko using his magic with confidence and no hesitation at all against King Hiss. And on his side was a warrior woman. He doesn't recognize her armor, and she was using magic attacks, some basic fire, ice and lightning bolts, but her melee strikes was what caught his attention. Adam knows her moves very well. He has practiced against them many times. Teela, he whispered. Outside of the cell Orko and Teela are fighting off King Hiss, but he is very powerful. His magic was countering everything Orko could throw at him and Teela was trying hard to break his magic concentration with her melee attacks. King Rander attempted to strike King Hiss from the back, but King Hiss was aware he was there and struck him with the regenerated snake arm Rander cut off. King Hiss' strike went through his abdomen and ripped out a fatal chunk of flesh. Father! Adam screamed out as King Hiss blew back Orko and Teela with a power wave and began to escape down the hall by turning into multiple snakes and shooting past Sir Laserlot. Teela gave chase by also turning into a snake and bolting after him. Adam finally picked himself up and went over to his wounded father and cradled him in his arms. The blood was pouring out like water. Adam could not stop the bleeding when he put his hand over the wound. Son, Cringer has your sword. Father, Adam wondered if his father knew his secret. Go, my son. Eternia will need its new king to be strong. He looked directly into Adam's eyes. Eternia will need its He-Man. Father, he did know. I have always been so proud of you, my boy. You will be a great king. Tell your mother, I love her. How did you? Before Adam could finish, King Rander gave in to his wound. The king is dead. Adam, Orko interrupted. Cringer needs to change or we'll lose him as well. Adam laid his father's head down as his tears were falling on the face of his father, his king, his hero. Sir Laserlot walked in with Princess Andra in his arms, heartbroken to see his fallen king. Sir Laserlot, go, get the princess to her father. Adam commanded as he regained his composure. My prince, I cannot leave you here. I will be right behind you. I have to carry Cringer, but Orko will be with me. Adam said, trusting what he saw out of Orko's battle with King Hiss. I will send help when I get to the masters. Sir Laserlot replied. Princess, Adam touched her frail hand. I am so sorry. We will make this right. I am sorry, my prince. I heard your screams, but could do nothing, she said in her weakened whispered tone. Go, Sir Laserlot. We'll be right behind you. With that command, Sir Laserlot started down the hall with Andra in his arms. Grayskull was now open. The techno-virus tore the door to shreds and once it was broken the force field went down. As the army began to pour into it, the plants and fauna of Grayskull seemed to have come to life to fight off the invaders. Mossman, the guardian of the Orb of Elders, came roaring to the gate. He was commanding the plant life to his bidding. Large roots and vines came up from the ground and swung wildly at the oncoming horde. The infected, again using blades and saws, tried to cut away at all the roots and vines, but just like a hydra, where they cut one root or vine, more grew in their place. They began to burn the vegetation, which did nothing to help them. The smoke from the plants they burned caused a toxic smoke that hurt their flesh. Mossman used every bit of his ancient power to ward off this threat. Skeletor has seen enough. This delay will not stop his ascension to power. He will become the master of the universe. He teleported himself to Mossman, but Mossman was ready for him and tangled up Skeletor in his vines and roots. Enough. You defile Grayskull with your very presence. Leave and never return. Mossman commanded. Mossman, Grayskull is mine. Skeletor replied as he waved his hand, which magically raised his swords to swing at Mossman. He was able to deflect the blows, but he was moving backwards to avoid them. Unfortunately, he failed to realize that Skeletor was actually pushing him back into the infected horde, who then were able to get a hold of him, and began to rip him to pieces. The roots and vines stopped attacking and released Skeletor as Mossman fell in battle. Finally, Skeletor began his rise to the throne as his other lords entered the room behind him. As he sat on the throne, it descended into a new chamber of crystal and light. In the center of the chamber was the Orb of Elders. He got up from the throne to grab the orb, when suddenly an apparition of one of the elders appeared before him. Kelder, you must stop, the elder warned. My name is Skeletor. Kelder died the day you placed Rander on the throne over my birthright, and this prize is mine. The crown was not meant for you. Your destiny is laid elsewhere. Yes, I agree. Why stop at being a king, when I can be a god? Skeletor walked through the elder specter to the orb. Kelder, do not do this thing. You will release an evil the universe is not ready for, was the elder's final warning before Skeletor touched the orb. The power seemed to overtake Skeletor as it surged through him, and then he and the orb vanished. Chapter 8. Turning the Tide. Once he saw Sir Laserlot was far enough down the hall, Adam turned and went back to Cringer, who had the sword of power strapped to his side. Adam pulled the sword and said the magic words he has said hundreds of times before. By the power of Grayskull, a blinding flash of light came crashing through the dark tunnels of Subternia. The Snakeman soldiers that were within range to see the light were all blinded and stunned. The Eternian soldiers in the area also saw the light as well, but it did not daze or confuse them like it did the army of Snakemen, so they were able to take advantage of this to turn the tide and start entering the lair. The light struck Adam, which began his transformation. His wounds all sealed up as if new flesh grew in the place of missing flesh. He grew a full head and shoulders above his natural height. His shoulders and hips widened as his muscle mass tripled. He-Man was always large, even when Adam first changed at the young age of 16, but his mass was always based on Adam's stature. As Adam's natural body filled out, and became more soldier-like from his training, so did He-Man's body. Except for his shorter hairstyle, He-Man now looks exactly like his ancestor King Grayskull. I have the power. He swung his sword in the direction of Cringer, which hit him with a second power bolt. The wound on Cringer's side sealed itself up. Cringer grew 3 times his normal size in length and muscular girth. He stood and roared to life, ready for battle. Orko, can you teleport my father's body to Man-at-Arms? He-Man asked. I can try, He-Man. I'm so sorry. He-Man mounted Battle Cat as he has done hundreds of times before, but this felt different. He didn't feel the urgency to just stop King Hiss. He felt compelled to destroy King Hiss. Go, Orko. I'll see you outside. With that command, He-Man and Battle Cat leaped away. Orko began to cry. He remembered all the kindness the king showed him over the last 5 years since his arrival from Tralla. He played the court jester so that he could stay close to Adam. But Orko was in fact one of the most powerful wizards of Tralla. They created the Sword of Power, and they were charged to make sure it didn't fall into the wrong hands. They always sent a wizard to make sure the chosen ones were worthy of the Power Sword. Orko loves the royal family like his own. Orko steadies himself and begins to teleport his king's body away from this dreaded place. Down the hall, at the entrance of the dungeons, Sir Laserlot was shaken by the flash of light. Then he heard the roar which seemed to shake the very walls of Subternia itself. It came from Adam's direction. He turned, assuming some horrible creature just consumed the prince, Orko and Cringer. He was shocked to see He-Man riding Battle Cat bounding his way. He-Man reached out his arm to help Sir Laserlot get onto Battle Cat. Without losing a stride, Sir Laserlot grabbed his arm while cradling the princess in his other arm and was swung onto the back of Battle Cat. When he landed, Sir Laserlot had Princess Andra cradled safely between his body and He-Man's saddle. He-Man, where is Adam? Asked the concerned Sir Laserlot. Orko took a chance and teleported Adam, Cringer and the king's body back to the front lines. We came through his portal. He-Man responded. King Hiss was almost at the gates of his lair. There was a battle raging between his snakemen and Eternian armies at the gate, but he was confident he would slip past it. Until Teela, who was in snake form, caught one of his snakes in her fangs. King Hiss' other 4 snakes returned to rescue it back, but Teela turned human again and pinned the snake head under her heel. King Hiss' snake would try to wrap her leg, but her snake scales felt like daggers to him, and the harder he tried to squeeze, the worse the pain got. With her staff in hand, she fought off King Hiss' other snake attacks. Her strikes were numerous and strong. She would hit an unlucky snakeman who attempted to help their king with lightning or fireballs, all the while pinning his snake head under her foot. Finally Teela did lose control of the pin as the grounds shook. Ram Man had hit the walls outside the lair again, but this inadvertently knocked Teela off balance for a second. Enough time for King Hiss to turn back to his humanoid form and grab Teela with his magic and pull her closer to inspect her. You reek of Greyskull magic. I am the sorceress. You are not. She is dead. I killed her. Yes, my mother died of your poison, but that created me, she said as she turned into a snake and slipped his grasp. She struck him in the face with her fangs, then landed behind him in her human form again. King Hiss was enraged. How dare this child think she can stop his ascent to godhood? But he found her quite confounding to get a hold of. She was fast, and as she dodged his strikes she countered with her own. She was clearly a warrior born and bred, nothing like any sorceress he has ever faced. But he also noticed that she did not use much magic. This is where he knew he had the clear advantage. You have taken the mantle of the snake. Join me and be my queen in this new age. Let me teach you how to harness your magic abilities properly. King Hiss offered her one last time. Never, she replied defiantly. So be it. As he raised his hands, green snake-shaped bolts came up from the floor under Teela and shocked her. As she fell to her knees, King Hiss stood over her. He picked her limp body up and was ready to devour her, when suddenly came a swing of the sword of power which removed both of King Hiss' arms. He fell back screaming and hissing in pain while his arms regenerated. He-Man had arrived on Battle Cat. He caught Teela before she fell again. As she woke she realized it was He-Man. Adam, she said softly, not wanting anyone else to hear. Teela, he replied, with such a relief in his voice, knowing he doesn't have to hide from her anymore. Take this, Teela said as she gave He-Man what he thought was a stick, but as he grabbed it, it turned itself into a double-bladed battle axe. He-Man was hit with memories that seemed to be linked to the axe itself. Memories that showed the Guardian Aller swinging the axe with deadly purpose at different creatures. What's this? This is the battle axe of Aller. With this weapon you can be offensive in your strikes. Sir Laserlock and Princess Andra are on Battle Cat. Get them to our line so she can get help. I'll finish this, He-Man said as he turned his attention to King Hiss. Teela smiled, filled with joy to see her friend standing strong again. She knows he suffered and yet his spirit did not break. She went to Battle Cat, who was just finishing another snakeman soldier in his way. She mounted Battle Cat and they were off through the battlefield heading toward the Masters. Come He-Man, your death will be my final step to godhood, King Hiss commanded. But just as he finished speaking, He-Man was on him and hit him so hard with an uppercut punch he flew through the ceiling of Subternia, breaking through miles of rock and soil until he was outside and still in the air. He-Man had leaped up behind King Hiss, and when his momentum slowed, He-Man was next to him, hit him back down to land with a double punch strike downward. King Hiss felt something different. He felt He-Man's strikes had a true malicious purpose to them, and for the first time in a millennium, King Hiss, Lord of the Snake Men, felt fear. He lashed out at He-Man like a cornered tiger. Using his snake venom bolts he struck He-Man several times, knocking him back, then called down a huge snake-shaped thunder strike on the champion of Eternia. He could see the poison was flowing through He-Man as he had the purple and green veins all over his body, but that did not stop He-Man. He fought through the pain of the poison and lightning strike, and his smoking body stood up again. King Hiss then called forth what seemed to be a wave of snakes from the opening they came out of, to crash upon He-Man. As he got closer, King Hiss assumed victory as He-Man was engulfed by the tsunami of snakes, but he celebrated too soon. He-Man reached through the wave of snakes that poured on him, biting every part of his body, and pulled King Hiss close enough to see eye to eye. King Hiss could see the deadly purpose in his eyes and realized he would not escape this day. He-Man slammed King Hiss on the ground before him and began to beat on him through the pile of snakes and into the ground back to Subternia. They landed in the middle of the battlefield again. This time the snakemen and masters stopped to see their leaders battle it out. King Hiss tried to escape by turning into his snake form, but every time he tried, He-Man would stomp the head of the snake, making them reform into his humanoid form. King Hiss kept trying to fight off He-Man's attacks, but to no avail. He-Man finally swung the battle axe of Aller, and split King Hiss from head to abdomen in two. King Hiss has fallen. The snakemen stopped in disbelief and horror. Their king is dead. Snakemen, cried out He-Man. You have a choice. Throw down your arms and negotiate a halt to your hostilities, or join King Hiss. Cobra Khan, who now with the death of all other ranking snakemen, is the ranking officer, looks at He-Man's battle axe, dripping with the blood of his king. He had seen enough. His people have been moved to the brink of ruin following King Hiss' commands. Maybe there is another way. He threw down his sword and yelled out peace. The rest of his people followed suit. The masters yelled out in victory. He-Man fell to one knee and vomited out the poison in his body, making his skin color go back to its proper tone without the discolored veins. Teela ran up to him and knelt by his side, putting her arm around him. Adam, Teela, you look different. We have a lot to talk about. Yes, I guess we do, he said, but he finally did smile and they held each other tightly. Duncan looked on in approval. Chapter 9. To All Secrets, an End. A month later back in Eternia City, in the Grand Hall of Palace Eternia, Man-at-Arms and the Masters are closing negotiations of peace terms with the new leaders of the Snakemen. A very somber King Adam and his mother Queen Marlena are sitting in their thrones overseeing the talks. Cobra Khan and his entourage agreed to all of the disarmament demands of the crown in exchange for their independence. The Masters will help provide defense until such time as they are deemed trustworthy to be fully independent. As they closed the negotiations, King Adam and Queen Marlena rose from their thrones and were going to leave when King Stratos chimes in. Excuse me, my king and queen mother. I want to thank you for finding and returning my daughter as was promised by King Rander. She is still very weak but is recovering and should be in good health soon thanks to He-Man, Snake Sorceress, Sir Laserlot and Battle Cat. Everyone cheered the names of the heroes. So when do we discuss the rescheduling of the wedding? Again everyone cheered. But King Adam looked at his mother. She gave a look of approval to whatever he was going to say. My dear brother, King Stratos, did you speak with Princess Andrea? Adam asked. Not today. Please take no offense to what I am about to tell you, but we will not be married. Why? Stratos seemed taken aback by King Adam's statement. This is Adam's first official decree as king? Adam has always been a bit aloof to the responsibilities of his royal stature, but this, how could he not help but feel slighted? King Stratos. King Adam continued, I spoke with Princess Andrea this morning, and she is in agreement. Stratos was surprised to hear this. I appreciate what you and my father were trying to do for us, as my father sought to give me a good and proper queen, which Princess Andrea will surely be for your people one day. But he never asked me if that's what I wanted, and Andrea said she was also not consulted before our betrothal. The people of Avalon have been long-time allies of Eternia and vice versa. We will always be there to defend and protect your people's freedom as we will now do for the Snake Kingdom. There is no need to force a wedding between us for this guarantee of peace. You are allies, brothers and sisters in arms, and you, yourself, are one of the masters of the universe. You will always have our assistance. But as my father did before me, he looked over to his mother. When the time comes to marry, it will be with a woman I love. His gaze moved to Teela, who was standing at the entrance behind the queen. When she noticed his gaze, she smiled. King Stratos' look turned from one of disappointment to that of respect. Adam spoke eloquently and had reason. He bowed his head in approval. King Adam has truly risen to his royal stature. Looking at Teela, Adam prepared to make one more announcement. Masters of the universe, there is one more matter that I must address with you all. They all stood at attention. I am Adam, King of Eternia. He looked directly at Orko and Duncan, and defender of the secrets of Castle Grey Skull. Duncan smiled, knowing this was the time. This is Cringer, my fearless friend. Cringer balled up next to Adam's throne, not appreciating the attention. Fabulous secret powers were revealed to me the day I held aloft this magic sword and said, by the power of Grayskull. The flash of light filled the throne room as all the masters watched Adam's transformation in awe. I have the power. He then turned Cringer to Battle Cat. He-Man looked slightly different as he now carried a battle axe on his back and had a cape made of animal hide with fur around the top. With the crown on his head, he was now the proper image of King Grayskull. I am He-Man, and I have carried this secret for the last 5 years, but I believe that together, we can better defend Eternia from all evil forces. The masters all look around at each other in disbelief at what they just witnessed. But just as suddenly they burst in cheers. He-Man looked over at Teela, who smiled and seemed to have pride in it. Queen Marlena grabbed He-Man's giant hand. Your father would be proud. He-Man smiled. Mother, how did you and father find out about me? Adam, you are our son. Your father knew when you rescued him from Skeletor's very first attack. You used the sword stance that he only showed you, and when I saw you at the palace for the first time I confirmed it. We prayed for your safety every night. We could see you had a greater purpose, so we didn't want to interfere, and you never disappointed us as He-Man or Adam. And with that she threw the biggest hug she could around his huge body. He in turn engulfed her in his embrace. Very unregal to do before everyone, but they did not care. Later that evening, as the celebration ended, Adam found himself alone in his room. He stood before his mirror shirtless, looking at all the scar tissue from King Hispites. The scars were still tender and sensitive to touch, but it was the pain of being back in the throne room and sitting on his father's throne that really hurt him. He could see his father's crown in the mirror's reflection behind him, all the powers in the universe, and he could not save his own father. There came a knock at his door. "Enter," he said as he grabbed his robe. The guards opened the door and the snake sorceress Teela came through. "Teela," Adam smiled seeing his friend. "My king," she replied as the guards closed the door. "Please Teela, it's still me, it's just Adam." "Well, not exactly just Adam," she replied with a smile as she changed back to regular Teela. Adam smiled and hugged his friend. As she returned the hug, ouch, Adam winced a bit because of his scars. Teela noticed a couple scars that weren't covered by his robe. "Adam," she said in a concerned tone. She opened his robe and saw the rest of his scars. She touched the scars on his chest, and began to run her hand over the other scars. As she did so, the scars began to not feel so sensitive anymore. She used some magic to dull the pain. Adam could see the look of concern in her face, and the slight struggle with concentration she was having with her magic. "Thanks," Adam said. "You should have told me this was still hurting," Teela softly scolded Adam. "It doesn't, anymore," he replied as his eyes met hers when she looked up. "Adam, I am sorry." "Sorry? For what?" "I'm sorry I ever doubted your courage. I should have known my brother Adarms would never leave us on the battlefield all these years." "Teela, I'm sorry you ever felt that way. I never wanted to keep that from you." "Adam, I'm so sorry I wasn't there to protect you," Teela said. "Teela, if you were there, you wouldn't be sorceress now. And if it's any comfort to you, it seems that your judgment on Sir Laserlot was correct." "Yes, but, Teela, there is no need for apologies and no reason to consider the what-ifs now. You finally learned who you are, and who I am. And you saved me." She smiled and walked out onto the balcony. Adam followed her, as she looked out over the balcony to the peaceful night of the kingdom. "Sometimes I forget how beautiful the view is from here. I always took for granted that I had so much access to you. Now that you're king, that will not change anything. You will still always have access to me." "Yes, but it's different now. You are the king of Eternia and He-Man. I am the sorceress of Grayskull, and I have so much to learn and I don't know where to start. I haven't even been back to Grayskull because I have been so concerned with getting your affairs in order to rule. Teela, and your injuries, I don't really know how bad they truly are. Maybe you will still need me around a bit longer to make sure the poison is truly out of your system. And then there is the matter of finding you a suitable bride, which I can't understand why you wouldn't just complete your marriage arrangement to Princess Andrea." "Teela," Adam interrupted her rambling. "You will always have access to me," he said as he came closer to her. She again looked up into his eyes. "Princess Andrea was my father's choice, not mine. I made my choice years ago apparently, I just didn't know it then. But when I was King His prisoner there was only one person I thought of. One person, who I promised myself, if I survived, I told my one last secret to. Teela, I love you. Be my queen." Adam told Teela while looking her eye to eye. She felt like she waited to hear him say that her whole life. Her brother Adarms, her best friend and prankster partner. They both stood there with no secrets between them, only true emotion and honesty. She threw her arms around his neck and finally, after all these years, kissed the man she loved. He returned the emotions, lifting her off her feet and carrying her back into his room. Neither will be alone with their secrets any longer. Chapter 10. A New Dark Beginning. Back at Snake Mountain, the Lords of Evil have gathered on the call of Triclops. Evil Lyn for some reason, never returned back to the stronghold. It has been weeks since Skeletor and the Ord disappeared. They pillaged what they could from Castle Grayskull but abandoned it shortly after Skeletor vanished. In Skeletor's absence Triclops began his rule, using his techno-virus to attack anyone foolish enough to challenge his authority. Beastman abandoned Snake Mountain when Triclops made his power move. We will begin our conquest in Subternia. Triclops began to share his plans. The Snakemen are weak from the battle with the Masters and should be easy converts for my techno-virus. Once we add them to our numbers we can then add Avalon. Those should be enough to start steam rolling all over Eternia. That is an interesting plan, Triclops, but I think it will take too long to execute. It will give He-Man time to find a way to end the threat, came a reply with a very familiar voice. I would prefer to take Eternia now. Out of the shadows came Beastman with a hulking figure behind him. They assumed it was one of Beastman monsters and that maybe he was going to fight Triclops for control, but he stepped aside and the huge being came forward and planted his staff before them. The Havoc staff was very different as the ram's skull had the orb fused into it. "Skeletor," Triclops said, "we thought the orb destroyed you. As you can clearly see, it did not. Where have you been? Absorbing the secrets of the orb was not something for me to do in front of you." "Well, it's my plan, Skeletor. "And it will work," replied Triclops, very emboldened by his control of the techno-virus. "We will take Eternia and the rest will fall in line," Skeletor said as he walked up the throne to Triclops' face. Triclops tried to turn his techno-virus minions to attack Skeletor, as he felt this was his time to rule. He will show Skeletor that science holds more power than magic ever will. Unfortunately for him, he wasn't dealing with Skeletor of old. Skeletor turned the infected onto Triclops, where they ripped him from the throne and tore him to pieces even while he was holding their controls in his hands. As Triclops screamed, Skeletor laughed. "Skeletor!" Triclops again screamed out. "I am not Skeletor, I am Skelegod." Epilogue. At the Temple of the Faceless One, one priestess is missing from the ceremony. Where is she? The Faceless One asks one of his minions. "I believe she went back to her room, felt ill," she said. He informed his lord. The Faceless One made his way to the room of the missing priestess. He could hear her in the washroom, struggling. As he opened the door, she was throwing up. "Why, daughter, I do believe you are with child." Evil Lyn looked up at her father, not at all amused by his mocking tone. He knew she didn't return out of love for him or to one day take her place as the Faceless One as was her duty, but this was an unexpected revelation indeed.